to be interesting? Should a creator be anti-glamour, anti-Hollywood to make good art? A few months ago, I stumbled across a TV show called Hi Octane, a TV show created by Sofia Coppola and Zoe Cassavetes. Now both filmmakers, but also both of them daughters of two of the most famous and most prolific film directors in the history of cinema and Hollywood. Sofia Coppola is the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola, and Zoe Cassavetes is the daughter of John Cassavetes. This show aired in 1994 in Comedy Central, and at the time Sofia and Zoe were about 23, 24 years old. That's what I've calculated. And although there is not a straightforward way to describe this show, you'll see why. They themselves explained that it was a show about cars, painting, and music. Everything that young people liked that they felt that was not being explored on TV. If you ask me, like me, Maria, I will describe it more like a celebrity interview show where celebrities get interviewed by their other friends that happen to be celebrities too, which creates a very chill atmosphere. I can feel like the musicians they interview or the people they interview, they're not on edge, they're not expecting questions or captive questions, they're literally just expecting a conversation in between friends. In this show, they will interview people of the likes of Anna Wintour, Martin Scorsese, Kim Gordon. The tone of the show is very, very particular. Sofia Coppola's Hi Octane is very bratty. I'm not gonna deny that. And it does take the piss at celebrities. Like there's an irony to it, but because they're also kind of celebrities, it can come off a little bit constrained. It can come off like they're trying to be a little bit edgy. But that's gonna lead to my question for today. I feel like in every video I ask you guys a question because deep down I don't know anything. The tone of the show that you will get to understand once we start watching it, does that make for a more interesting celebrity show than the tone of the shows that lean into celebrity culture? I was gonna leave my opinion to the end of the video, but I think I'm just gonna say it now. I'd rather have a show like Hi Octane that, yes, it's bratty and it's a bit teenagery and it's a bit obnoxious and a little bit hypocritical because they're very, very privileged. I'd rather have that than have a show or a reality show that rejoices in celebrity culture. Because I think shows like this, they leave a space for artistry, and the other type of shows don't leave space for nothing. At least this is experimental. What is the other one? The other one is nothing. Today we're gonna react to episode 2 of this show. I already did episode 1, but because the quality of the footage is so bad, I feel like the format that I did didn't really work. We're gonna watch some parts together. I'm not gonna go through the whole show, but then we're gonna go in deeper into small details that I think don't get enough attention and that actually have really interesting stories behind it. Today is gonna be a lot about fashion history. So if you like that, stay. Let's watch the intro of the show. I'm gonna talk over it for copyright reasons, but I'm gonna put subtitles so you can at least know what they're saying. As you can see, the show is super fast paced. It's very DIY. It has a sort of punk aesthetic to it. And to me, it has the same vibe as the magazines that I used to read when I was a kid, like Bravo and Super Pop. I don't know which ones you had in your country, but I'm sure you know which ones I'm talking about. It feels to me like when in school, someone came to give a talk to the kids and the teachers were like, this is really important, it's really interesting, you guys are gonna love it. And as kids, you kind of purposely tried to look uninterested and not give a shit, which is a very bratty behavior. And that's the main reason why a lot of people online consider it forced, edgy, and constrained. As we keep watching the show continues with a short interview to Anna Wintour, editor of Vogue, famously known Anna Wintour. Now we all know her. She has been editor of Vogue. I mean, she's not anymore, but she was editor of Vogue for decades. But at the time, she had been an editor for the magazine only for 6 to 7 years. The interview host is Thurston Moore, the guy from Sonic Youth that was really close friends with Sofia and Zoe. And he interviews her for his section, Thurston's Alley. Let's watch it.
This is Thurston, coming to you from Thurston's Alley. We sort of left the alley today. It's a little hot out, and we wanted to talk to our friend Anna Wintour here, the editor of Vogue magazine, and we figured we'd come up and talk to her in her own alley. Do you remember your first fashion show that you went to?
I was working for a British magazine at the time called Harper's Queen, and it was before there were the tents and the sort of huge production, Robert Altman making movies and everybody being so famous. I was the junior assistant, so sitting way in the back row. And the woman that I was working for, to show how important she was, she would have a hat and gloves. In those days, if you were an editor, a senior editor, you showed yourself being a senior editor by the white gloves that you wore. The shows were in the evening, and the men would wear a black tie. You know, the men in the audience. There would be lots of empty seats. Lots of people wouldn't come. The shows would take 2 hours just for the girls to go backwards and forwards, and they look so haughty. And to see how it's gone from a sort of black tie experience with ladies in white gloves to the zoo that it is now is amazing.
That's it from Thurston's Alley / Anna's Alley. See you next time. Bye.
Okay, yes, I know that the interview looks super brief, but in between that briefness, Anna Wintour actually reveals something really interesting, which is the change that fashion shows had from the time when she was, just starting in the industry to right now. Before the 70s, a fashion show was very elitist. It was strict, it was silent, it was all about being proper, it was all about the core, and especially, it was really long. Like a fashion show could take hours because it was truly about showing the garments and giving the audience enough time to take in every detail, to really take in the craft. People took notes, there was silence, there was no music. I don't know if it could have been even considered like a show. It was more like a presentation, if that makes any sense. During the 70s, things changed. Like many things, like even cinema had like a major revolution, cultural revolution. The shows became more dynamic, more expressive. They became shorter in time, and they introduced the element of performance and entertainment. And this shift was due to many things. First, the social changes that were happening during that time or at the end of the previous decade in Europe and in the States. A lot of countries were evolving and they were becoming more open-minded. And for example, the States had the Summer of Love, had the civil rights movement. In Europe, we had Paris with May 68. All of these things led to a more free and more forward-thinking decade. Second, we had the disco scene, which introduced a new outlook into partying and sex and sexual desire and living your sexuality. And third, the event that marked the revolution of the catwalk, the 1973 Battle of Versailles. Let's talk about this show. In 1973, the Palace of Versailles was going through a crisis. It was in really terrible condition, they had no money, and they had to come up with an idea to raise funds to do some maintenance. So they decided to organize a show. The concept for the show was to have 5 French designers compete against 5 American designers. It was sort of like the old and the new coming together, right? Like New York was booming as a new fashion market, and Paris is Paris. The 5 French fashion designers were Yves Saint Laurent, Pierre Cardin, I don't know French, okay? Emmanuel Ungaro, Marc Bohan, and Humbert de Givenchy. And the 5 American designers were Oscar de la Renta, Stephen Burrows, Halston, Bill Blass, and Anne Klein. There were around 700 guests invited to the show, and each guest paid around $200 per ticket. $200 is a lot now. I can't even imagine how much it was back then, like 50 years ago. 50 years, wow. The approach of the teams was very different. In my opinion, one was very French and one was very American. The French spent thousands of dollars on stage production and props. They had an orchestra. I read they had a pumpkin-shaped carriage, and they had Josephine Barker, I think it's pronounced Barker, singing and doing a huge spectacle. Obviously, as you can see, Yves Saint Laurent, Givenchy, Pierre Cardin, so many of these designers were already like super famous. So I guess they had the dollar bills. But this level of production, like it can happen sometimes, was a double-edged sword because the theatrics were there. The play was there, the show was there. The problem was that everything that was happening on stage was so crazy that people didn't pay attention to the clothes. Their value was totally muted by everything else that was happening around it. On the contrary, the Americans had a very simple stage. They just have a black background, music over a cassette, like click, radio. Literally just had the basics because they didn't have that much of a budget. But what they did have was the vision. And in this case was a new vision for women's clothes. The clothes were lighter, they were sexier, they were more sensual, more modern. They were more similar to pret-a-porter, that at the time was a concept that was still developing. You know, up until then, they only had the concept of high fashion, and that blew people's minds. They wanted to make women more comfortable, right? Like you wanted to go dancing. It's like the whole disco scene thing that I was saying. You want to be able to look fabulous and look great, but you also want to disco away all night. And you can really do that if you're like, you know what I mean? Another factor that they included that was mind-blowing was that they included the models in the fashion show. Up until then, a model was pretty much a mannequin. Their purpose was pretty much to strut anonymously along the catwalk. But for this show, in the Battle of Versailles, the models were the show. They were the spectacle. They walked hands-free, twirling, making the clothes shine, twirling exactly like this, like I do it. They didn't just wear the clothes, they wore the clothes. I don't know, I wrote that, I don't know if it's gonna come. You get what I'm trying to say, right? This was the predecessor concept of the 90s supermodel. You know, that model that is one with the clothes, that takes over the catwalk, that is a show in itself. Another concept that they introduced, I mean, it's not a concept, another groundbreaking thing that they introduced was that some of these models were black. Intentionally, unintentionally, I don't know. Maybe they just casted the prettiest girls they could find, the coolest girls they could find, I don't know. Maybe there was a political message. There's always a political message, right? But they broke a barrier never broken before. So much so that black models started to be included in high fashion shows. And some of them became really popular, like Pat Cleveland. So yes, contrary to popular belief, the Americans won. And I'm saying contrary to popular belief because everyone thought that these big French designers were gonna win. And that's pretty much the change that Anna Wintour is talking about here. I'm not saying that she's talking about this particular show, but you know, what this show initiated is a change that she will talk about and that in a way she will contribute to, no? And actually that leads to my next point, which is that I think I have a very tricky relationship with fashion. I love the art of fashion, I love the creativity, but I very much have conflicted feelings towards the industry and the people in the industry. Whether they're like famous or just people who are really interested in the industry and really want to work with it. I don't know, I was in an environment for a long time with people that were really into it. So, well, yeah, just let me explain. My problem with it is that sometimes I feel like fashion takes itself very seriously and there's this allure of exclusivity, and that comes with a certain like arrogance and like feeling of, no, you can't sit with us, you don't belong with us. This fast judgment of who you are by who you're wearing or how do you carry yourself and blah blah blah. Again, I want to clarify, I'm not talking about just people who use fashion as a way of self-expression. I think that's so cool. I think that was me in the past, not so much now. I'm talking about, I don't know how to explain it, like people in the industry, like fashion motherfuckers, you know, like that TikTok term. When I'm in a room full of fashion people, you suddenly go in and you see how they're checking you out, and that's how they judge whether she's cool or she's not cool. You know, these are all things that I've experienced in that environment that intimidate me a little bit. And then with the bigger scope of fashion, I feel like sometimes the industry feels a little bit like morally ambiguous. It's as if their only purpose was to achieve aesthetic beauty, and whatever way you can get there works, right? Like this whole like, yes, plus size, okay, the people are asking for it, so let's include some plus size models, I guess. And then the moment that people stopped being so vigilant with body inclusivity, they were just like, okay, bring the skinny models again, bring them back. Let's just get these fat ones out. Let's just get the skinny ones again. It's like, what side are you on? And I don't think it has always been like that. Like for example, the Battle of Versailles and the American designers getting black models and being inclusive. Sometimes fashion can be really political and really committed, but maybe it's a sign of our times that it's just a little bit ambiguous. I guess we all have contradictions, right? Like I'm not perfect either. Like I have contradictions too. So I hope I explain myself. I hope like people are not gonna come at me or something like that. I love fashion. Fashion is great. I'm not saying that every industry should be morally right and should be morally righteous or anything like that, because like I said, we all have contradictions. Like for example, we all hate Billionaires, they're all evil, but we all have bought something on Amazon. I'm just saying that, I don't know, I have a complicated relationship with it. Love the art, iffy about the industry. Sorry about the light. The sun is going down and my light is changing so much. I hope it's not ruining the video. The show keeps playing and we go from one revolutionary fashion figure to another one. Or to a show. From one revolutionary fashion show to another revolutionary fashion show in very different ways. Zoe and Sofia follow up with a coverage of the X-Grrrl fashion show. X-Grrrl, for a little bit of context, because I didn't know about this brand until a few months ago, was a clothing brand founded by Daisy Von Firth and Sonic Youth's Kim Gordon. The idea behind it came in 1993 when Daisy was working as a sales assistant for the clothing brand X Large, a sort of skater streetwear brand for guys set in LA. Kim and Daisy wanted to fill in the gap for tomboyish but feminine clothing. This kind of streetwear for women that was oversized, but it was feminine and it was colorful and it was playful and it was kind of hot as well, you know? They said that up until then, girls were buying guys' clothes and kind of fixing them to their bodies. Yeah, that wasn't always the most convenient and you always ended up looking like you just stole someone else's clothes. The way that this show is linked to Sofia is because it was a show produced by her and Spike Jonze.
Hey, whose idea was this?
What?
Whose idea was this?
Spike and Sophia's, like, about 6 months ago, they were like, let's do a fashion show. And I was like, yeah, great, whatever. And then it became a reality, and the rest is actual history.
Rumor has it that the reason why they produced this show together was just to find an excuse to be with each other, which is pretty cute. As we know now, they came to be a very legendary couple in the film industry or in Hollywood because of the movies that they produced once they broke up. Allegedly, Sofia Coppola portrays her relationship with Spike in the movie Lost in Translation, and allegedly Spike portrays his version of the relationship with Sofia in his movie Her. And the way that Zoe is connected to the show is because she modeled for the show and also she filmed. I just realized I forgot to put on lipstick, guys. I'm gonna put some lipstick on. I'm back. The light. I hope it's gonna be fine. I don't know. Maybe I should film like this. This fashion show was revolutionary because it was a guerrilla fashion show organized in the streets of New York. Coincidentally or not, it was not coincidentally, it was totally planned, after a Marc Jacobs show that had just happened. That's why in the video you can see a lot of celebrities like Kyle MacLachlan, the guy from Twin Peaks, I don't know how to read his name, Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell. This show was also the discovery for a lot of us of the celebrity, of the icon Chloe Sevigny. She walked down the catwalk with a wedding dress that was just a white t-shirt. And the reason why she's there is because apparently she had been the brand's fit model for a while and she had, and I quote, crashed on Daisy's couch since high school. What a cool group of friends. Yeah. Anyways, the show was an absolute success to the point that Kim Gordon said in her memoir in 2015 that she thinks that X-Grrrl gave her far more notoriety than Sonic Youth ever did. I think that's a crazy thing to say now because Sonic Youth is so legendary, but probably at the time it took some time, and this fashion show, I guess the story of it is quite enticing. Especially when you include like Sofia Coppola in all of this and it's like, what is happening, you know? The brand, however, was very short-lived, at least while Daisy and Kim Gordon were part of it. The brand existed from 1993 to 1998 until it was sold to a Japanese company. In 2016, Rebecca Johnson wrote for Vogue the following, and I'm gonna read it to you because I think it's just a really cool article. X-Grrrl was the gateway fashion drug for 90s girls like me who were anti-establishment, anti-mainstream, anti-consumer, strictly secondhand, skate-schooled, rear on DIY ethics, on punk, hip-hop with a shot of indie rock. We weren't skaters ourselves so much, but our guy friends and our boyfriends skated the streets, ramps, curbs, and abandoned malls of our town, and every other unguarded concrete stretch within range. And we were shut as hell, well steeped in more than our fair share of brand-named and homemade and bootleg skate videos. We started bands and we made our own signs and posters at Kinko's late at night on copy cards liberated by our friends employed there. We went to school and worked our own menial jobs by which we form an underground economy. You always had a friend or two behind the counter at the movie theater, the bookstore, the coffee shop, the sandwich shop, the convenience store. We collected records, tapes, books, stuff. Whee! This show makes me so nostalgic of something that I haven't even lived and that I would have probably never gotten to live because this is very US focused, I think. But yeah, for me, like looking into this 90s idealized version of it is more like a way, it's more like an escape, you know, in the same way that people like fantasy and sci-fi and I don't know, Game of Thrones, and they like to imagine like different worlds. That's what I do for me with this decade, you know. It triggers my brain into imagining, I guess, a little bit. And I think that sometimes people criticize 90s nostalgia a lot, as if you're like this person of like, I was born in the wrong generation, as if you couldn't forget your past or your childhood or something like that. But the thing is that I never lived this time. I was born in 1999, so I didn't get to experience this whole like 90s thing. And I don't think that I was born in the wrong generation. Like I very much like the time that I was born in, because we're just so much more advanced. I don't know in your country, right? Like every country is different, but like 30 years ago, everything was so racist, for example, right? And we have evolved a little bit more. So I'm very much comfortable in the time that I live. But I guess I just like to look at it like a little bit like a fantasy world, like an escape, you know, like a world that doesn't exist in my head. Because my nostalgia is not so Y2K because I lived that. Those are just my memories. But the 90s is before then, so it just feels like I can look at it with a bit of idealism and romanticism. Maybe you lived through the 90s and you're watching this and you're like, okay, this girl is crazy. But that's the way that I see it. Perhaps you know this brand from the very famous MTV feature. And yes, the only reason why I'm mentioning this is because I want to show you this clip of Kim Gordon saying the following.
I can't really wear any of the clothes now because I'm 7 months pregnant. We're having a girl. I hope that she's a riot girl.
I just hope my daughter is a riot girl. And you know what? I think now we wouldn't even dare to say something like that. Because yes, maybe it's a bit edgy, like she's trying to be edgy, and maybe it can be a little bit cringy when you look at it, you know, like in retrospect or whatever. But you know why? So what? So what? At the time, she was really into the riot girl movement, into the riot girl art, whatever, and she was committed to that shit, and she was like, I just want to be this forever. I don't care if I'm young now and at 60 I'll be different. I want to be this forever, and I want my daughter to be this, and I'm committed to these ideas, and I don't give a fuck. And now, because we're so scared to be cringe, we wouldn't even dare to say something that we could imagine could come off as cringy. And this is not my reflection, by the way. I'm not that smart. This is Ocean Wong's reflection. I saw an interview by him ages ago. I think it was through Skype, or que coño Skype, through Zoom. So you can imagine it was probably like around COVID time or something like that. Ocean Wong, he's a very famous poet, and he's also a lecturer of creative writing or creative poetry. And he says that the thing that worries him the most about this new generation of kids, like Gen Z or whatever, is that we're so scared to be cringe, to feel embarrassed, to put ourselves in a vulnerable spot where we could possibly be shamed or not. And the thing is that if you're making poetry or any kind of art, if you don't put yourself in a vulnerable position, you're never gonna do something that goes past the surface. You're always gonna stay in the surface of things, which is a safe spot, but you're never gonna go in deep, because that thing that you think that might be cringe, perhaps is a global phenomenon. Specificity is key, right? You know, I mean, that's just art 101. But yeah, I think we are so scared, and I include myself in all of this. You know, I have been wanting to start a YouTube channel for years, and I didn't dare because I was like, it's gonna be cringe and I'm gonna embarrass myself, and who gives a fuck? And now look at us, we're all in this together, we're all here together, girls. Anyways, yeah, so yes, Kim Gordon might come off a little bit too edgy or too forced or too cringe, but you know what, it shows commitment, and I like it. This show shows commitment, and I like it. Hi Octane episode 2 continues with the interview to Martin Scorsese, which, like I said in the beginning, doesn't really have anything too interesting to go over. The only thing that I think is quite interesting is that the way it was edited was so advanced for the time. It's literally edited like a TikTok. Honestly, like cutting out the silences, very different shots from very different angles, always keeping you on the spot. I think Sofia and Zoe were quite visionaries, even if they probably didn't try to, and they were just trying to make the people that were sitting down in their couches watching Comedy Central go insane. Because, you know, now we're used to this space, but probably 30 years ago, people were watching this show and they were like, why is this shit on crack? Like, it's too much. People were going crazy like, oh, I can't stand so much stimuli. Some of the other people getting interviewed in this show are Beastie Boys. They do like a whole skit kind of interview type thing. I wanted to focus on the fashion part of the show because it's what I found the most interesting. A little bit interesting fact about this show as well was that it got canceled after 4 episodes because Comedy Central said that it wasn't funny. And I kind of agree, like, it's not funny. It's just certainly magnetic in a way. But I can see how Comedy Central is very comedy oriented, right? Like, it's not a ha 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 kind of show for sure. It's more like, these damn teenagers, what are they doing? And yes, that is the end of the show. Now we're gonna go back a little bit to the beginning. What do you think? What do you think about this show? And what do you think about the question that I asked? Which I guess are 2. Does a celebrity need to be anti-celebrity to be interesting? And is a show like this that is a bit constrained or edgy or whatever, I don't know what way you want to describe it, more interesting than a show that leans into celebrity culture and that doesn't have this ironic tone at all? I think that if your opinion is that this show is highly obnoxious and hypocritical because these girls, at the end of the day, are rich, famous girls making a show with other famous people, and yes, they're taking a piss at it, but they're just being bratty. If that's your opinion and you can't stand this show, I think I get it. Like, I understand your point of view, but to that I will, and I'm not trying to convince you, yeah? We're just exchanging views. To that I will counter argue that I think it's better that at your core you keep this sort of bratty behavior towards whatever it is that gives you privilege. In their case, fame and wealth. And I think that Rebecca Johnson describes it in her Vogue article. Girls like me who were anti-establishment, anti-mainstream, anti-consumer, etc., etc. I think it's better to keep that at your core because you will become more critical of the establishment, the mainstream, and the consumerism, no? I think now my generation, especially younger people in my generation, in Gen Z, they're hugging the mainstream, they're hugging privilege, they're hugging wealth. Like, the people that they look up to rejoice in their privilege, in their celebrity status, and younger people are being raised to want those things, not always from a very critical point of view. And I think that if at least you got to be raised in a society that, even if it was somewhat hypocritical, rejected these things like fame, celebrity, and the mainstream, you'll keep that attitude forever. And I think that's a good attitude to have. Because like I was saying before, yes, we all have contradictions. We live in a society, you know. We're all gonna criticize Jeff Bezos and we're still gonna buy something on Amazon. We all can be anti-mainstream, but if things start going well for you, if you're an actor or something like that, and things start working out for you, you're gonna take a role that is mainstream. But if you keep that anti-mainstream ideology inside of you, I think you will never be blinded. And I think that applies to everything. Like, we're just talking about something really shallow, like entertaining culture, Hollywood, whatever. But I think it's the same in your day-to-day life. I don't know, am I explaining myself, guys? I don't know. So I feel like I ramble on and I don't get my point across. I have all this idea and my thoughts get tangled in my head and I don't know if I can get my point across, and I just yap for too long and people don't really understand what I'm saying. So yeah, that's been a challenge for these YouTube videos because I want to make them as clear as possible and I want to have like a discourse that you can actually understand. So I hope you understood. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. There's news for the channel as well. I opened that thing like community where you can post and make posts. I post quite a bit. I don't know, I'm trying to at least. I opened an Instagram account, which I already had, but I wasn't using, to be honest. And now I'm gonna try to use it a little bit more. I guess just to find ways of communicating more with you guys. I have a complicated relationship with social media that is not YouTube. I also have a TikTok account, but I don't really know how to use TikTok, so I'm trying to do that as well. I don't know, just follow me wherever you feel like it. If you feel like it. And just keep in mind that I'm learning. Yeah, I'm learning. I don't usually take a lot of pictures of myself, a lot of videos. I'm not used to posting, even in my private life. So I'm learning, it's a learning curve. But I do want to communicate more and I just want to do more. I'm so excited about this channel. I just want to do more, I guess. So yes, I'm so happy to be here again. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the blog as well, even though it wasn't the most entertaining blog. Like, I didn't show you pretty things. Maybe in the next blog I'd like to show you, I don't know, more cool stuff. I don't know. Hope you have a lovely weekend. For me, it's weekend. I don't know what day you're gonna see this on. And yes, that's it. Bye bye.